All right, all right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict show. I got stuck, Ross. It happens. It happens. It happens. So good to have you here. How was your weekend? How was your?
It was actually quite wonderful.
Oh, great, great. By the way, just to let our viewers know, we are in a new studio. Yeah, they might
Yes,
look at this the same, but we are in a new setting. I like it.
I
It's
do
very
too.
cool. So thanks to who do we have to thank for that? Yes, of
Elizabeth.
course. Without her, there will be no channel, as we always say.
She's the producer.
No, she is.
She does
Yes,
a great
yes,
job.
and yeah, there will be no channel. Let's just say straightforward.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of straightforward about it. So anyway, we are so excited to be here. I am. I'm
I
sure
am
you
too.
do, right? I had my coffee this morning, so I'm good to go. So what we're gonna be talking about today? Today we're gonna be talking about what's going on in France. And what's going on in France, in my opinion, so far, it's a reflection of a much bigger problem.
And a cultural bias that the French people have.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
take a deep dive into the psychology of this as well.
Yeah, I can only imagine how people must be feeling right now, as you see, even for us overseas, which seeing the images. I have family lives in France,
Yeah.
so I mean the images. I've already been notified that the tourism went down by 25%.
I'm not surprised.
All the constellations of, I mean, who's going to want to go to that? So
Not me.
yeah, and apparently that the French president, he's yeah, even though he's not running for office again, but the French people, I don't think so. Historically, they're gonna ever forgive him for because he's the one to highlight to you the hypocrisy. He's the one who's been saying last time, "Oh, we cannot allow protests. Oh, we have to allow protest, freedom of expressions, and so forth in other countries." Now it's happening in his own, cracking down on it via brutal.
Oh, 50,000 police emerge
Yeah,
and converge on the supposed riot sites.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just to give the background about what triggers all this, it has to do with the death of, should we use a different term? Not just the death.
How about assassination?
Yeah,
Murder
a
of.
cold blooded murder, basically. That's what it
Yes.
was, of a 17-year-old of an Arab descent, I think, from
Yes.
Algeria,
Yeah.
Algerian descent. And we're not gonna talk about the origins and all that. But we're gonna be talking about, of course, the teenager was driving without a driver's license. Okay, but does that justify using? I mean, killing the guy for?
Is that an execution excuse? I don't think so.
Yeah,
Driving without a license.
yeah. What do you guys think? Do you think that should the police reacted with that aggressive force to the point of killing the guy for not having driver's license? So just leave us the answer on the chat box. We'll be happy to take a look at it.
You know, there's a very big story here,
Yeah.
and it has to do with, I think, with, you know, one of the things we talked about before was the Great Wall of China.
Mm-hmm.
And what does every person in China know about the Great Wall? Yeah. And what does it really mean to them in terms of their belief system? We can do anything. I think we talked about that.
Yeah, yeah, I
show.
remember. Yeah.
And so when we look at the French people, and I happen to know a whole lot about French people
Yeah.
for a number of reasons, which you know about already.
Mm-hmm.
Bastille Day?
Bastille, La Bastille.
La Bastille.
La Bastille.
Day.
Yeah.
People violently took to the streets to overthrow oppression.
Yeah.
And it set, I don't know if that was the first time they did that, but it set a major precedent for how do we get things done. We take to the streets violently. And what do we, how, and we've seen this over and over and over again in France. They have the precedent and they all know about here's how you get things done. Whether they consciously know it or don't know it,
Yeah.
it dictates a lot of their behavior and the way they think about things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead, Ross.
Well, I don't have a mic anymore.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you can hear you. So, yeah, it is the idea of what French is known for that.
Yes. Was I silent before?
Can you guys hear him now?
Okay, speak, say something.
Yeah,
Were
the
things I
usual.
said about Bastille Day, did that recorded or not?
No.
Okay,
Let's go back to
we'll
that
go back
picture.
to that.
What we're looking at is, first of all, the background in France,
Mhm.
the French language is au contraire.
Au contraire, yeah.
Okay.
Au contraire, ouais.
You're going to say it correctly.
Well,
I'm gonna- I'm
well,
an
I speak,
American,
I
think.
speak French, so I speak French.
And what that is it's an opposition. It's a legitimate way of gathering information. It's a legitimate way of thinking about things.
Mhm.
You have to prove that you're right,
Mhm.
or I'm going to disagree with you. And the natural event is let's disagree.
Yeah.
And then and if we can, we come to agreement over what's true and what's not true. So it's not like it's illegitimate. As I mentioned to you before the show, I was involved with a merger of a French company and an American company, a high-tech company, because it used to be popular for Americans to buy French companies to bring their technology into the United States.
Mhm.
And I was interviewing the CEO of the company that's being acquired.
Mhm.
And part of our conversation, I came to a point where I said, and part of your conversation is au contraire.
Au contraire, ouais.
He looked at me, blinked 3 times, said, my God, you're right. He didn't know that that's what he was doing constantly. Okay, so you add au contraire.
Yeah.
Then you go, Bastille Day. Say it in French.
Bastille.
Bastille.
Bastille. La Bastille. Yeah.
The French people
Mhm.
arose under times of great oppression and poverty and violently threw out the government and the royalty.
Yeah.
What precedent did that set for the French people? Well, we've seen it over and over again. They take to the streets.
Yeah.
And they're not very polite about it.
Yeah. Well, it was no different than what took place for the French Revolution to begin with.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, the idea back then was about, well, yeah, the gap was widening between the rich and poor. Well, we talked about this before, but it wasn't about that in itself. It was the idea of how the masses took control of the situation and resolve it to their benefit.
Yes.
Yes, it was in a bloody way of how it was resolved, but sometimes that's what's need to be done. You know, and look where France moved on from that. It became the hallmark.
It did.
Yeah,
it did. Yes.
Yeah. This is why you're seeing in Europe. Are you seeing the same in Germany? No.
No.
Are you seeing anywhere else? No. But you'll see it in France.
They've got, say it again, La Bastille.
La Bastille.
La Bastille.
La Bastille, yeah. And given that France soon is going to be celebrating its National Day on the 14 Juillet, July 14th.
Oh,
That's when, yes, that's where the national French Independence Day. It's July 14th. Yeah.
So we have 2 recent events. One is when they raised the retirement age to 62?
64.
64.
It was 62, 64, which is problematic. Now, there is now, I'm glad you brought this up because there's one of the talking points that we're going to have to highlight. This social breakdown. I mean, what would we call it? Social breakdown, civil war, social ethnic tensions within society, because the issue of, especially when it comes down to immigration, still a big issue in France. Here is what's the trigger about all this. In my opinion, when I see it going in the path that we don't know what's going to be the result is that the far right in France gave $1 million to the police family members. The police who shot gave his family, they donated money, whatever, generated about $1 million some.
For his defense fund or something?
Something like that. But the fact that you're giving money to the policeman who shot the kid,
it's very telling.
And where it came from?
Yes, it came
from the far right,
conservative.
French.
French always.
Yeah, you already have now Marie Le Pen. Marie Le Pen, she's the far right candidate who ran for president twice and didn't succeed. Who's to say maybe she will succeed this time, because she's saying the moment I became the president or I become a president, I'm gonna reverse all this, taking France out of these conflicts that have nothing to do with our interests. So you can just see, to me, you're already building the appeal for her, because French society now is divided.
Oh yeah.
beyond what they are seeing the economic outcome of following the policies initiated by the United States.
Does that mean no NATO, no Ukraine? What is it really? What's
Well, that's what they want.
they
They
want
don't want to
out?
be part of NATO. No, they care less for NATO. No, no. Mind you, at least some conversations that I had in France
Yes.
when I will visit family and talk to them, they are not too excited about this NATO thing. No, Charles de Gaulle did it back then.
I remember.
Yeah, when he withdrew France from NATO. I mean, it was the US that had to sort of appease him by giving concessions for them to stay. But now things are different with this energy crisis in Europe.
Yes.
You know, you're looking now at both Germany and France. Actually, I have a picture. I'm going to share it with our viewers here just for them to see. This image here. That's Macron and Scholz.
Oh.
And the question that is now not circulating, but the idea of whether both Germany and France that have enjoyed sort of dominance, I mean, this still to a degree of the European economy, is their dominance coming to an end?
Well, with their economy falling,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, and that is the question we ought to ask. This is the reason why we want to bring this up. Because this issue, this is not about just the tensions in France. This is a reflection of where the EU is headed.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the big picture here. Are we looking at the beginning of the end for the EU as an economic bloc? Is a legitimate question to ask. When you consider, for example, BRICS, Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa, which, by the way, they will have their summit soon in August. You're looking at about 40 countries already lined up. 40 countries. 40. I checked it last night. And actually, just to...
I've been following that not closely. And I'm actually surprised, if not shocked, that it's gone to 40. Boy, you talk about a different view of the world.
Yeah, it's just the idea of how this is moving a certain direction that now many are asking, okay, where this is going? And it's legitimate questions to ask. I want to share a screen here just to show you, and I usually get it through my tweet, just for you guys to see. Because I tend to check things before I'll come on the air here. Here's the screen. So I'll share it with you guys. Take a look. Look at that one, Russ.
It didn't show up yet. Okay, here it comes.
Yeah. 41 countries.
Oh, 41
countries. Yeah. 41 countries accept BRICS currency a month before its summit. So,
oh my God.
That just, it tells me right there the idea of, okay, if they are accepting the currency, well, the moment you accept the currency, you're going to become a member. Of course, you have to meet certain criteria, but that's not the point. The point is how we take this within the context of what's taken in France or whole Europe as a whole. Yeah. You look at for Germany and France.
Germany's its own very big story.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
I'm going to focus as France today.
Yeah. But psychologically, what it's going to do to the population there? I mean, if I were a German or a French or whatever, a citizen of Europe, I will be just wondering, questioning, because I will be dealing with the stress of how the economic conditions are changing in front of my eyes, and I can't do anything about it.
I can't remember the exact number. I think energy is now 4 to 10 times higher than it was before the conflict in the Ukraine.
In Ukraine, that's correct. And I don't see any reason now for why, because there are those who say, well, if Europe changed this, changed that, Russians will, Russia has now no incentive whatsoever to deliver gas to Europe anymore.
They don't need to look west
anymore. No. It doesn't make any sense because that trust is gone,
And certainly, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Russ.
Well, they certainly found enough markets in China and India. To totally take anything they can produce.
That is correct.
It's huge markets. And growing.
Yeah. And second, if you are sitting on the other side in Russia, you'll be asking yourself, well, how can we trust them? They couldn't even make decisions for themselves. Because that's, to me, all this chaos that's going on in Europe economically.
Yes.
No, it's a reflection of the failed policies. We don't. The, the mainstream media is not going to want to disclose the details. That's like what's going on in the UK
Yes.
with their economy flattering now. It's going down. Germany is no different. It's how they wording certain things by saying, "Oh, the economy shows signs of improvement." Psychologically, they want to minimize the impact.
As opposed to doing what's effective to bring their economies back online.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I don't want to go too far that way, but get out of Ukraine, get a relationship going with Russia again, and get the energy back.
Yeah.
My God, open up the nuclear power plants.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, they won't be able to do it, Ross.
I know.
They're too weak. The leadership is so weak. They don't have the strength. When I say strength, I mean courage to stand up and say to the US, no, we're going to have to do what's right for our citizen, for our interest.
You mean active self-interest?
Yeah, they can't. They can't. I bet you they can't, because I've heard it decades or two ago. It was any time I will go through France to visit the family. I will have conversations. I know I've been hearing the same conversation. It's no different than what we have here in the US about, for example, immigration.
Oh,
I've been hearing the conversation forever. Both political parties just playing with it like a football. They'll throw it from one camp to the next. It was never intentions to resolve the issue to begin with. And speaking of immigration, to tie it back to Europe, Germany now needs 1.5, get this, Ross, 1.5 million skilled workers.
Good luck.
Yeah. Canada, and I just came back from Canada 2 days ago, and I had a conversation over there. Canada is already accepting, so far, there are 500,000 immigrants. Those are skilled workers. So what do we get? See my point? See my point?
Unskilled labor.
Yeah. No offense to immigrants. We all are immigrants.
Yes.
I'm not pointing fingers here. We all are immigrants, no matter how you look at it, born here or not. But at the same time, if you are now to improve on a country, you're going to have skilled workers.
And we know that for manufacturing jobs, for example, the United States is remarkably short-handed. People don't want to go into manufacturing. Workers don't. What do you do when you can't find workers to manufacture things?
Yeah.
You stop being an economic power, because manufacturing goods is where the real economy lives.
Exactly.
Not in good ideas. No, you need to make something.
Yeah. Well, that's why
sell it.
Yeah, that's why you're hearing this conversation about the AI taking over and all that. They have no idea what the impact is gonna have, let alone the danger of it. I haven't read up briefly so far. I mean, I need to learn more about it, but I read up from some key individuals who know this technology they've been doing it for a long time, and they're all warning about all this. So let me ask you a question, Ross. Psychologically, how do you think, in your opinion, given your professional career in psychology, how do you think the French people, let's say sitting over dinner, how are they processing this?
Much of the conversation is going to be around French culture is lost. We have a lot to fear. We now have 10% of our population is some other culture.
Yeah.
And there's no effort whatsoever being made to bring these migrants or immigrants into French society. They live marginally, they live poorly, they live in their own communities. And how many people in France are saying France is lost? And I've heard that over and over and over again. Because as you know, I know a lot of French people.
Yeah.
Because of my history of working with French people. And for one thing, they're highly emotional, they're highly opinionated, and they're saying, we are afraid that we're going to lose France. And the truth is they might.
Well,
fear is a real motivator here, and they're seeing more and more of the percentage of the population being immigrants. It's now 10%.
Yeah.
Wow, 10%. That's a lot.
Well, given French history in Africa, wasn't so. What did they expect? No, no.
The
As-
people who caused the problem are long past.
yeah,
Now that this generation gets to live with it.
yeah. So almost the chickens coming home to roost. No. Here is one fact that I just found out, Ross. It was disclosed recently that France has more gold in Europe than any other country. About
Really?
50 plus tons of. I mean, a major, not a 50. It was more than that. I wish I would have. But the idea of France has more gold than anyone else is expected. So the question that comes, mind you, that France does not have gold mines. So where that gold came from?
Most likely they're colonies.
Yeah. Well, that's why France is making a fuss when he was kicked out of Mali, because Mali has gold mines.
Oh.
Niger had a gold mines, or still has a lot of gold mines. So makes you wonder where France got its gold from. But the question is not that. The question is why this information came out at this time.
What's the answer? Do you have a good idea?
I don't. The only thing that I can think of, given that France requested or expressed interest in joining BRICS, they want to highlight that, hey, we have gold if you're going to back up with a new currency by gold. That's the only way I can see it. Otherwise, why will this be disclosed at this time?
Is one of the implications that the French franc is going to retain its value because of the gold?
Unless if they go back to their currency, which I don't see that
Yeah.
happening.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So that
Yeah.
they're going to continue with the euro?
Well, because we're the one who pushed them into the euro to begin with. You can see the game, what we were playing. We never, the bottom line to it, I don't shy away from saying it. We never wanted Europe to stand on its feet economically and militarily. That's the bottom line to it. So that becomes a question of what is the geopolitical impact of this, what's going on right now in France.
Make predictions. One of the predictions is we're going to see Germany distance itself from the United States.
Yeah.
Thanks to the pipeline bombing.
Yeah.
And we're going to see France distance itself.
Yeah. But can they?
That's really the question. When you take a look at that submarine deal, the Australian submarine deal,
yeah.
going, how come France didn't protest more? I mean, they lost $90 billion on that, some outrageous amount of money.
Yeah.
They seem to be intimidated by the United States or bribed or something.
Yeah.
So they shut up about it. They were really unhappy, but now we don't hear anything about it.
It's gone. Yeah. Well, there is one other theory, and this is just a theory, thinking outside the box. And I usually talk to my own contacts, so just conversations, and the argument was all of a sudden this riots emerged this forcefully, because those are, you're talking about major things.
Yeah.
And the name CIA came up.
No,
no way, right? You look at what took place in Hong Kong.
No, you don't mean.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or Ukraine back then, 14. On a serious note, that becomes a question. Could this, we're just thinking out loud here. We're not saying that's what it is. We don't.
Right.
Because we don't have the facts and we can't speculate. All I'm saying is thinking outside the box. But I think outside the box based on other trends. What am I referring to? I'm referring to the trip of the French president Emmanuel Macron when he went to China. When he came back, what did he say? Because he praised China's economically and wanted to cut a deal with China exclusively. Not the EU, but France. Could this be a payback?
Oh, yeah. We don't know.
We don't know.
Pure supposition.
Yeah.
But the fact that we'd even suspect that is very telling about nefarious activities of the CIA.
But again, I'm looking at the trends.
Yeah, of course.
I'm looking at a history here.
Yes.
I'm not speaking on the top of my head here.
Right.
Because when I go back and I went and read the beginning of what took place in Hong Kong, the riots in Hong Kong. I wrote about the stuff in Ukraine back in 2014 when I published the Russian book.
Yeah.
And I saw the trends. So I'm just putting this out there for you guys. What do you guys think? Just because that's to me what a community is all about.
Yeah.
If we can talk openly, put the questions on the table, it might sound outrageous or something, but nonetheless, it's just an opinion here, and we'll see what it may lead to. That's the whole idea of, to me, what a productive conversation is all about.
Yes.
It's not about just my opinion. It's better than yours, and I don't believe in that.
If I'm correct,
Yeah.
thanks to the internet and thanks to people like us, there are a lot of us out there.
Yeah.
We are experiencing the Great Awakening. People now have information that was absolutely unavailable to them previously.
Yeah.
And so they actually get information to think through things and maybe come to very different conclusions from mainstream media, what the government is pumping out, what's really happening.
That's true.
And we get to vote.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why, again, I'll think about it psychologically. How a European citizen, let alone besides France, what's going on in France, because economically, I'm sure they are under stress.
Oh,
when you are noticing your electric bill or energy, whatever you want to call it, went from, let's say, hypothetically $100 to $300, that's a problem. Because the majority of people, same here for us, I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
I'm not exclusive to this. I'm one of this. I live based on a budget.
Right.
I got to keep an eye on where my spendings are.
Right.
If something goes up so high, it's going to throw me off. I'll become stressed over it. So I only wonder how Europeans are feeling.
The last thing I heard from the people I know in Germany was their 100 euro bill for energy to heat their apartment went to 400.
That's a lot.
And their income isn't great enough to cover that for most cases. They were cold this winter.
Yeah.
Of course, they're not cold now, but
yeah.
The psychological impact of that and the uncertainty causes enormous stress. No two ways about it. They don't. Let me say it this way. What's the number one cause of illness? No matter what the illness is, it's some unresolved stress. It's either physical, it's chemical, or it's emotional. And very, very often it's an emotional stress that is at the heart of physical illness. You're going, really? Yeah, really. The research couldn't be more clear.
How does it work, Ross? If you can just provide us brief, just for our viewers to know.
I'll just give you one quick example.
Certainly.
Because I have several hundred.
Certainly.
The organs inside the body that deal with stress are the adrenal glands. They sit right on top of your kidneys. They're little walnut-sized things. And you stress them enough, and they start producing things called adrenochrome and adrenoleukin. These are active hallucinogens, which means your thinking is impaired, and you can't put cause and effect together very well. What does that mean in terms of being an effective human being when you're highly, highly stressed over a long period of time and your body's producing these chemicals? It means you are dramatically less effective at thriving or taking care of yourself and your family. Just one example. We can also take a look at inflammation. I don't want to beat this too much.
Yeah.
But what does inflammation do to your arteries, your veins and arteries? Well, inflammation is going to cause them to plaque. Now, it's a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah.
But so what does that mean in terms of heart attack, stroke, and so on? You are less healthy based on the severe amount of stress that you experience. And I can go through every organ system like this and going, but you get the point.
Yeah.
Stress is really a killer.
So the French people now dealing with this, what's going, because now you can't even go out in the street in certain areas.
Yeah, you're not safe.
Yeah, because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, when you start seeing cars burning in front of you and tear gas being used.
I remember a couple of years ago when the French did it again.
Yeah.
And in one night, they burned 900 cars. Going, how remarkable is that?
Wow.
That's a lot of people doing a lot of damage. They were really up in arms, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I said earlier, let alone now the economic conditions for where the French economy is, Europe as a whole is not doing well. As a matter of fact, some are start to ask the question: are we starting to see the beginning of the end for the EU as an economic bloc?
Uh,
And again,
I'd go a step further, but okay.
yeah, but again, those are just questions we ought to ask. I mean,
Right.
personally, I speak for myself here. I don't shy away from saying this, even though there are those who say, "Oh no, the EU's economic bloc is far stronger than others." Yes, they are in terms of monetary, but now when you start taking or chipping at the foundation
Right.
of the system, what's to expect? Because this is exactly a reflection of that. When you have the French president saying, "Oh, we're gonna support demonstrations in other countries because it's freedom of expression," it's no different than what the Canadian Prime Minister, dictator Trudeau, is saying and doing. Did you know that in Canada now is going to pass legislation as far as limiting, and I use the term limiting social media, which means
Really?
if you are a Canadian, you will be isolated from knowing exactly what's going on.
Censorship.
Exactly. In
Oh,
Canada. In Canada. So Canada is going to be isolated, basically. And how can you as a head of a government, enact a legislation like this when you are calling on other countries to allow freedom of expression, to allow? So that's a hypocrisy at the highest orders.
You know, it wasn't that long ago that the standing joke was the only civilized country in North America is Canada.
Canada.
No longer
No longer.
true.
No,
No
Canada
longer
is
true.
gone. Canada is gone.
Canada's gone.
Canada's gone. I went there, and of course I didn't stay too long. But it's just you can feel,
Yes.
you can sense. I mean, and they were kind at the airport when you check in, customs, and
Right.
friendly like always, whatever. But that's on the surface. Deep down, society in Canada is going some direction. I wonder what the Canadians going to do, whether they can even do something when you control social media, because basically what's going to be the type of news they're going to be receiving, the Canadian citizens, it will be what the government wants them to know.
Right.
So where is this freedom of expression? Where is this freedom of information, shall we say? It's kind of
I have to wonder. Remember the Chinese
Yeah.
comptroller?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't remember her name right now. I used to know it real well. Meng. It doesn't matter.
Which one? For
It's the one that was the chief financial officer. For
oh,
Huawei.
Wang Manzhou.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, I still remember. Wang Manzhou. Yeah.
I wonder. You know, that really set a precedent of international kidnapping,
Exactly. Yeah.
and it was all at the behest of the United States. And I wonder what precedent that set for the thinking of the Canadian people.
Yeah.
Our country kidnapped a business leader
On behalf
of the
yeah,
United
another
States.
country. Yeah. And that also tells you whether Canada is just has to obey the orders of its master. No different than Australia, no
Right.
different than Germany. I would even say France to a degree. But could it be this? What's going on in France? A reaction to Macron sort of pushing back?
I wonder.
Because you wonder about the policy, because it was Macron that called the European Union to reconsider the usage of the dollar. It was Macron who did that. So that's why, to me, yes, he was an incident. It was a reason for why the riots happens or is going on as we speak.
Yeah.
But not at this intensity, this fast. And again, I go back to Hong Kong. I go back to Ukraine, back in Kiev, back in 2014, how it's all started.
The Treaty of Minsk.
Yeah. So it's it makes me just wonder. And I think, I put the dots together.
You look at the trends of this,
Yeah.
of what's going on in France. Do you have any predictions taking the trends into the future? What's going to happen in France?
In France,
well, in Europe in general,
Yeah,
but in France
yeah.
particularly.
I think the far right party is going to take over. And if they do, or when they do, you look at now at a different direction for France altogether.
And what's going to happen to the, what is it, 7 million immigrants,
Y-
legal
y-
and illegal?
Yeah, yeah. And these far rights, they kind of have no tolerance for immigration and so forth. I mean, let's just be pragmatic about all
Yeah,
this. Okay. As I said earlier, we're all immigrants,
right.
you know. But if you are immigrants, so you kind of contribute to the society, your adopted society per se. Like I always say here, I'm for immigration,
Hmm.
but on the other hand, I'll put requirements.
Selected.
Yeah, if you are coming here to contribute to society, then welcome. But if you are coming here to drain the resources, I would say pack your bags, turn around, and leave my country.
Yes.
Straightforward. There is no ifs and buts.
I used to do pre-employment evaluations for high-tech companies,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually did hundreds of those things. And I had any number of high-tech specialists from Russia who were applying for U.S. visas because it had job offers in American companies,
Mm-hmm.
and they had to jump through more hoops to get immigration status. And at the same time, living where we live, I could see hundreds of illegal immigrants who just walked into the United States and going, this is absurd.
Yeah.
These are really high tech, valuable assets
Yeah.
in because we have so many high tech jobs that are going unfulfilled. And at that time, the Russians were more than happy to come.
Yeah.
That's changed.
Yeah. Yeah. I just quite don't get it when we are advocating or saying, well, the territorial integrity of Ukraine is very important when we couldn't even maintain our own territorial integrity right here at home. I mean,
Hypocrisy.
we all know the southern border in Texas, how it is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a la la land, and you wonder yourself, or you ask yourself, does the government, what is the government's role? Or is the government that is supporting that?
Well, when the illegal immigrants get any kind of status and have the right to vote, what party do they vote for? I'm not going to say the name of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
party,
yeah,
but they vote in a particular direction.
yeah.
So it's in that party's best interest to let them in. And going, really?
Yeah, it's problematic. And then again, as I said, I've been hearing about this issue for a long time. And back then, the friends that I used to talk with and all
Yeah.
that, I said, don't expect anything to be resolved. It's
Yes.
because immigration for us is a football. It's political football.
Right.
So they're gonna be playing. Again, that falls back into the psychology aspects of playing on emotions. I mean, you know this better than anyone else, Ross.
For a while we were doing deep dives into the analysis of government statements,
Yeah.
and we saw how they were packed emotionally without content. Say, here's how to inflame people.
Hmm.
Your democracy is at stake. Your freedom of choice is at stake. That doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
But boy, does it. I want my freedom. I want to be able to choose what I want to do. No, if this happens, you'll lose your freedom. And it has no content to it because it didn't say this is what you'll lose specifically. And we stopped doing it because it was the same stuff over and over again. And as we were doing deep dives into the analysis of the presidential statements, we were sickened. We said some real wordsmiths have put this together, and it's to absolutely manipulate what you think based on how you feel.
Yeah.
And going, we stopped doing it. It was just too repetitious.
Yeah. And you know who I don't like to use the term blame because I don't like that term. To me, I never blame anybody because I gotta look at myself first. But in this case, I have no choice because it's on the outside. Who do I blame for this? Is the president's advisors.
I do too.
Telling him, if I take the good example. The good example has to do with when President Biden called presidency a dictator. I mean, I took a step back and just thought about it. I thought about this advisor who went inside the White House, the Oval Office rather, and said, Mr. President, you might want to see this statement out loud for the rest of the world to hear. That's how much you take stand on calling dictators and all that stuff. When, in fact, when that statement came out, it was only a week after the Secretary of State was in China and was granted an audience with President Xi. The second thing, and again, I'm just thinking out loud here, for this advisor, whomever advises the president, do they even have a depth of understanding that in international relations context matters? The fact that something like this is said.
Let me say it in a soft voice. They're idiots. They're idiots.
Yeah.
They have no idea what consequences in the real world are.
Nah.
And they have no understanding of what's going on internationally. They're amateurs.
And that is the problem we have in American foreign policy.
Oh, it's not just foreign policy. It's all over.
The whole system, for that matter. So I look at it now with the trip of the Secretary of Treasury.
Oh, God.
She's going tomorrow to China.
Hey, good luck. How about you take $100 billion of our
well,
Treasury notes?
Well, yeah, you're right. But I bet you two things, Ross. There are only two things why she's going. And actually, two things. One is to beg for money, and two is to beg China not to dump U.S. treasuries. That's the only thing I see. No matter what you read and hear about, oh my gosh, we're gonna go to China and talk to them about continuing our relationships. It's nonsense. That's manipulation.
I'm so floored that they think that the Chinese people are so stupid.
Stupid, not gonna.
These are really smart people. Now, do I agree with everything they do? Of course not.
No,
that's not the point. They're smart people, and they really get what the United States is doing. What the government is doing.
Yeah. Here's a question for you, Ross. Do you think should China cancel the trip, even though it's confirmed it? But hypothetically, should China cancel the trip? Because what are the Chinese getting for all? We're saying one thing and doing another.
Actually, I think it would set a real precedent.
Yeah.
About China are a very powerful nation, and we are smart enough to see right through the subterfuge that you're putting out here.
Yeah.
And we're not playing ball with you. We know that you have designs on bringing us down, stopping us in every way possible. And here's the consequence. That's the thing. Consequences are everything.
Yeah.
And so I think that they really should say, don't come. We're not interested in talking to you. Like they canceled the corn deal.
Yes, I read about that.
And going, that's a clear signal. Hey, we can get everything from somebody else.
Yeah.
And we know what you're up to.
Yeah, I was just wondering about that. And as a matter of fact, there are some who've argued, why will China even grant an opportunity for any officials of the U.S. government to meet, given what the policies, you're talking about, we say, we recognize one China policy, but in reality, we're doing the opposite for that. So that was just something crossed my mind as I was following up on the confirmation of her trip, and it is confirmed. So
I have a concept for you.
Yeah.
And it sort of fits into this conversation. The concept is radical responsibility.
Interesting.
What does that say to you? Because you're an example of it. I am responsible for my actions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm responsible for what comes into my life.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, and you even use the words, I don't blame other people for this.
Mm-hmm.
It's me, and I bring it on. Whatever happens, I get the consequence. And what we see is, no, they're to blame. No, somebody else is. No, that doesn't work.
Shifting the blame.
Shifting the blame, and you even said it earlier today. Shifting the blame simply doesn't work when you get the consequence of it.
Yeah. And is it the reason for shifting the blame is to minimize the feeling of failure, or is it just to?
It's an attempt to not get punished.
By whom?
By the real world consequences.
Oh, interesting.
You see children do this. No, it was somebody else who stole the cookies. When their hand is still in the cookie jar.
Yeah.
Yeah. going,
So
oh
it's the
no, somebody
punishment.
made me do it. No,
Yeah.
no, nobody made you do it. You did it.
Yeah.
And if you accept radical responsibility, you're now in a psychological power position to rule your own life, because it all falls on me to live my life on my terms. And what we're seeing is massive, matter of fact, whole societies that shift the blame to somebody else.
Convenience.
It's convenient. And of course, we're not seeing this in the White House.
Oh, of course.
No, of course not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all the world's fault.
It's everybody else's fault.
It's
not
Russia's
us.
fault.
There's the perfect example of it, though.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's not a joking. It's not a laughing matter, but you're right.
So, just the introduction of this radical responsibility,
Yeah.
I think I would introduce it to everybody as something to consider in their own life.
It's very important.
Oh, and you talk about international affairs. Yeah.
Well, here we look at the results of it in Europe right now.
Yes.
So the European economy, I mean, as far as where it's headed, I don't see any good signs.
I don't see any good signs at all.
Yeah, I don't see any good signs at all. I mean, you're looking now that Germany, do you know that Germany is pivoting to China quietly?
They must.
Quietly.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it was like, what the heck are you scared of? Why can't you take stand and speak your mind?
Who are they afraid of? Well, we know who they're afraid of.
Yeah,
and how severe are the consequences? My understanding is, I used to live in Germany.
Yeah.
And at one time I spoke German pretty well and really followed German politics for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I could tell, the United States had a constant fear of Germany rising again, because the culture is such that they get things done. They're powerful, they're power hungry, and so a whole lot of what went on was to keep Germany in its place.
Yeah.
Well, it worked from 1945 till now. I mean, how many American troops are there? 50,000, some outrageous number. I can't remember.
About 38.
38,000.
To my knowledge, yes. To my knowledge.
That's a lot of soldiers
It is a lot.
to keep on foreign soil for
Ramstein.
75 years
Yeah.
or almost 80 years.
And they just had demonstrations recently
In Germany?
in Ramstein. They don't want the U.S. forces there anymore.
Well, when I lived in Germany, the German people resented the foreign soldiers living in their territory.
Yeah, this is no different than what's going on in Okinawa.
I think that's exactly true.
Let alone that Okinawa, because they're not even, they don't believe they belong to Japan to begin with,
Right.
which they don't. It was
Right.
the kingdom of,
Yeah.
I think, Ryukyu, something like Ryu, Ryukyu.
Well,
Sorry for the mispronunciation here, but I read briefly on it that the idea that the kingdom was then, it was no Japan.
Yeah.
It was no
The
Japan.
Okinawans believe they're Okinawans.
Yeah.
Well, what a
Yeah.
concept.
Makes you just wonder how Tokyo ended up taking over. So
And so we have all the armed forces, the
Yeah.
United States armed forces there. And it's a two-edged sword. One of them is the U.S. pumps a lot of money into Okinawa. They
Yeah.
want the money,
yeah,
but they don't want the military.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can't have it both ways either.
Do you remember the Vieques story?
Of course. Yeah,
Okay, we went to Vieques.
yeah.
Now, Vieques is a part of Puerto Rico
Mm-hmm.
where they would do bombing runs to practice bombing
For Navy. Yeah,
for the Navy. Yes.
yeah,
And the people who lived there said, "We don't want this anymore." And so the Navy said, "Well, you're protesting enough and you're complaining enough," so they withdrew. And what did the people of Vieques do? They requested they come back because they missed the money. And the Navy said, "I don't think so.
we're done.
We're done."
Yeah,
So I get it's a two-edged sword.
yeah,
And I know that the German health state
yeah,
has been very much supported by U.S. military. Now, not directly, but
yeah.
because they don't have to produce an army, they get to do their resources into other things, their economic resources into education, into healthcare, and so on. So the United States has been subsidizing healthcare in Germany. It's been well known for decades and decades that
Yeah.
that's what's going on, although it's not talked about very much.
Yeah. but at the expense of the American taxpayer.
It's at our expense.
Yeah,
Let's be clear
yeah,
about
To
this.
me, I won't support something like that.
Of course not.
No, I won't. I don't mind helping, but you help once or twice, but that's about it.
And quite frankly, the United States isn't wealthy enough to help anybody right
Oh
now.
no, we're wealthy on papers.
Oh,
That's about it. I mean, if you think about this trip of the Janet Yellen to China, let's just call spade a spade. She's going to beg for money. Simple as it is. That's just a reality of it. We still, FYI, if you happen to be an American watching this, we still borrow money from China, despite what you hear, despite what you read. We still ask them. I mean, I'm assuming the Chinese officials just kicking back on their chair and laughing at how stupid our leaders are, because that's how I see it.
I can hardly imagine what.
Yeah.
I'm. For one thing, the Chinese government's outraged at so much American behavior and disappointed.
Yeah.
And they actually call the United States government evil. Going, really?
It reached that point.
They've reached that point.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, you
Lying
can't.
two-faced phonies. I mean, come on.
You can't be doing that. You can't. I look at it just in human behavior, human relations.
Yeah.
Like with you.
Yeah.
Do I smile with you if I don't mean it?
No, you never.
No,
do.
I won't. And I can't do it. That's not my person. And I can't. To me, that's hypocrisy.
Yes.
If I mean to smile with you, I'll do it. But if I don't mean it, I won't do it.
Well, one China. Taiwan is part of one China.
Yeah.
Oh, but by the way, we're sending them billions of dollars worth of armaments to defend against.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're supporting if mainland China does invade, we're here for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're here for the
In
Ukrainians.
words.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let alone with doing
Or
secret training in Taiwan.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Or let's send the speakers of the House to Taiwan.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So the idea of, just to go back to our topic about France here, where France is headed, and given now that Macron is not going to run for office, that's it. And I think that the term is 5 years. Not
See if 2 years.
Two terms.
Oh, two terms.
2 terms of 5 years.
How much longer does he have in office? Do you know?
I think 2 or 3.
2
I'm
or
not
3 years.
certain,
So he's going to be around for a while.
Yeah. And I made the mistake last time, and I'll admit it. I made the mistake. I was speaking a little bit too fast, but I said it's 7 years. It's 5 years.
It's 5 years.
5 years,
Okay.
not 7 years. My mistake. So the idea of what's going on right now, and with what the far right is doing, could it be a hint? I am sure we won't want that. That's no different than the outcome we wanted in Turkey, but it came out not to our favor.
Yeah.
We never wanted Erdogan to win the re-election.
I was actually surprised he did.
And he did. As a matter of fact, he's now blocking the admission of Sweden into NATO. Well, you know why? Because Sweden government authorized the burning of the Quran. Yeah. Yeah. That's how crazy. Sweden is gone. Scandinavians, except for Iceland and Norway to a degree, but Finland and Sweden, they're gone. I mean, back then when I went to Sweden, Denmark, Finland, but that was back then. It was incredible how peaceful people are. They never had to worry about a thing regarding an invasion from a foreign country or a military conflict, or it's not in their vocabulary. You talk to them, those things don't even come up.
I watched as Sweden invited Muslim people to come and immigrate into Sweden. And all of a sudden they had crimes that they'd never even heard of before.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it became dangerous for a woman to be alone at night out on the street. And then I watched them say, we're so proud of our multicultural society. And going, it's not that way now. They're not so proud of it.
No.
They understand that they've created a lot of problems by bringing non-Swedes into Sweden.
Yeah, that reminds me of, I got a tweet one time from one of my followers on Twitter, which was very, very, very interesting. And the idea was about the multiculturalism in America. and you know what the picture they had? They had pictures of Nikki Haley and Victoria Nolan. You know, the both of them are, yeah. So one of them was born here in the U.S., the other wasn't, I think, or even both. It won't matter. But ethnically, one of them is India,
Yeah.
Nikki Haley, and the other one, Ukraine.
Oh,
Yeah, Victoria Nolan. Her ancestors go back to Ukraine. And the idea of how all of a sudden you have two descendants of a foreign ethnicities are the one calling for problems. In the case of Nikki Haley, because she wants to run for president, which will be embarrassment anyway. I hope she won't, because she's embarrassing. She just have no idea what she's talking about.
yeah.
She's talking about we're gonna have to fight the Chinese,
Oh,
right away. And Victoria Nolan, we all know what she did and what she's doing, fermenting tension. So that idea, just as you brought up the multiculturalism and all that, it's disgrace. Yes, we call our society a multipart, but in this case, it's problematic.
I used to live in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
and there were parts of New York City that truly were multicultural melting pots. There were parts of Brooklyn.
Yeah.
The rest of New York was not like that. So I think there are isolated areas of the United States with that's true melting pot,
Mm-hmm.
but the rest of it that's not the case. People live in their own communities.
Yeah, it's just how well it's. I think the faces of America is changing.
Yeah.
For the good, for bad, I don't know. I can't speak to that. But I do see enough changes within society as it's moving.
Elizabeth and I were at an amusement park, local amusement park.
Yeah.
It was a really hot day, and we're sitting in the shade.
Mhm.
It had a mister going on, one
Yeah,
of
yeah.
those things. And so we decided let's see how many different kinds of people we can see walking by us. And we sat there for an hour because we were hot and thirsty. Guess how many different types of people we saw? Make a wild guess.
35.
Elizabeth, you remember the number? 107.
Wow.
These are very different, clearly different color, different shapes,
Yeah.
different hair, different
Yeah.
body styles. We counted 107. We were flabbergasted that there were that many different kinds of people walking by us in that amusement park.
Yeah.
It tells you the diversity here is enormous.
Yeah. It's sometimes it can be good, but other times it'll create issue. And this is what we're seeing now in France.
Yes.
It's because given France's history in Africa, mainly in North Africa, and
With the French, the right the right wing,
yeah,
might be the main culture.
yeah,
There's no effort to integrate these people into French culture. They just want rid of them. They're not the same religion. They're not the same color. They're not French.
yeah.
And I have seen no indication that the French people want them in any way, although they might need them.
So what happened to that slogan of "Pays de la liberté,"
Which means,
country of liberty?
let's not even go there.
Yeah.
I mean,
so see, to me, and the reason I'm saying this, Ross, is for a reason.
Yeah.
To highlight the hypocrisy that exists within the Western world, the democratic ideals per se. That is the reason why I'm saying this.
Democracy, it's just another inflammatory word. It doesn't say anything.
No. It's nothing.
But boy, you can get people all riled up about it. I had a dinner party at my home recently.
Yeah.
And we were talking about China because, as you know, I've been there
Mm-hmm.
and have paid more than a little attention to what goes on there. And I said, many of the people in China are living very much better lives than have ever lived in the history of the 5,000 years of continuous culture. Very much better. And one of the people said, yeah, but, I really cherish my liberty and my freedom. I'm going, I stopped the conversation because I knew they knew nothing. And these are people I really like.
Yeah.
But liberty and freedom to do what? Liberty and freedom to express what?
Yeah.
All the people in China that we met expressed anything they wanted and did whatever they wanted, but they didn't have the worry of anyone killing them.
Yeah.
The government left them alone. I'm going, isn't that amazing? The government left them alone. It's you can't judge Chinese culture and what they value by American standards. And so freedom means something very different to the Chinese. Democracy
than it does for us. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Now, there is one thing that as I did the research, onto this. Oh, let me say thank you to, because I like to always say thank you to Super Sticker Ross. That's something I've always done. And when I do with Elizabeth, she always taking the William N. Thank you so much for your super sticker. And you know what it says, Ross? It says, "Nice to see you back, Ross. Miss you."
Thank you, thank you,
Yeah,
thank
they've
you,
been
and thank you
asking
some more.
about you a lot. Thank you so much, William. Boone. Boone is here. He's thank you very much for your super sticker.
Ni hao
It
ma.
says, "What's the best way to deal with hypocrisy in a news?" That's the question.
Well, the first thing is acknowledge what it is. Acknowledge that there's something self-serving going on
Yeah.
here that is not in your best interest.
Wow.
Otherwise, you're inappropriately influenced to think and feel a particular way
Yeah.
that is not in the best interest of you or probably most of the people around.
Yeah.
But it's in the best interest of those serving in government.
Yeah. So to go back to my point before I forget here, just about what we are talking about, the China changes and so forth. And I had conversation with people that did deal with the international affairs. That's usually my circle, if you will. Of course, it's exchanging ideas and all that
Right.
stuff. So, and one of the key things that came out in the conversation has to do with the demographics of China. So I listened. I usually, in a setting like that, I will do more listening than I do talking. I don't talk much, Rasta, right?
That's true.
Yeah. I'm teasing you. There are those who say I talk a lot. But anyway, so do I, Elizabeth? We're good. Thanks for being honest. I appreciate it.
You only talk when you got something to say.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Of substance. I don't ramble.
Right.
around,
You
so.
don't.
So in setting like this, especially with outsiders, those are
Right.
not close people to me. With people close to me, it's different. So I do more listening. And one of the conversation came up was the idea of what the demographics of China are changing, which means the population is getting older.
True.
China's government will have to think in terms of how it's going to be able to manage this change, given that probably by 2050, the number is going to decrease in the population size.
Right.
And given also just in 2 months ago, India overtook China in demographics, 1.4.
Really?
Just 2 months ago, yeah. By the way, I've been doing the research. I'm going to do analysis for our viewers in a recorded video about this one here. So the question became is, how will China's government address and manage this change? Because now you're going to have a large segment of society, not as large as, it's just a great portion of society, elderly, which means they have to have the retirements, they have to have then you have the demographics within society that is changing, but not as much as, for example, in Japan.
Oh, Japan's a tragedy.
Or Germany.
Yeah.
Or France.
Yes.
Or even Canada.
Or Russia.
Or Russia, for that matter. Yeah. So it was a very interesting conversation to be part of in really understanding. And those individuals I was talking to, they have a grasp of, they don't talk nonsense because I won't be sitting there to begin with.
Right.
Anytime there is nonsense, I remove myself from that. So it was that idea of how the Chinese government is going to manage this moving forward. And it's no small task either. So
you listen to some commentators and they say it's the disaster for China. It's going to be the downfall of
China.
No. I'm going, go ahead and catastrophize this all you want for the headlines and see make people pay attention to the tragedy of the day.
Yeah.
What we're going to, if I've looked at this now for several years,
what
we're going to see is diminishing quality of the life of the elderly people. They just don't have the resources to take care of them at the same level. But families take care of families in China.
Yeah.
And so the real issue is not enough young people going into the productive economy. And going, now, is that really a problem with artificial intelligence technology and extraordinarily sophisticated manufacturing that requires no human intervention? I don't know.
Could technology, Ross, backfire?
Oh, for sure. AI could backfire. That's for real.
Wow.
Here's something that really threw me. How many more young men are there in China than there are young women? 100 million. going, this is a staggering number of young men who don't have wives.
Hmm.
And the prediction was these young men are going to be so full of vim, vigor, vitality, and anger that they're going to do major uprisings and so on. You know how much demonstration there's been? None.
Zero.
Zero. And so I was talking to Chinese people about this. Say it's not a problem.
Hmm.
Going, really? They said, nope.
Yeah.
So many said in the cities there's an abundance of women, and in the countries there's a paucity or not enough women.
Interesting. So the government in this case will have to balance up between rural areas and urban areas.
The government's taking no action whatsoever. They're letting people do what they want. It's like, why do people go to the cities in China? Economic opportunity.
Opportunities.
Right. Or we see men that can't find a Chinese wife. They now have a Vietnamese wife. They have a Cambodian wife. They have a Laotian wife. Going, well, those people, they're finding solutions if they want one.
Yeah.
And any number of men worldwide don't want a solution.
But could that have a long-term impact? Because I look at it like, for example, in the case of Singapore, and I think Boone put something yesterday on a Discord, because he's just for you guys to know, Boone is a member of our channel, and because
and contributes intellectually a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I like Boone's, whatever he shares with us. It's very, very interesting. And he knows the culture. He understands it inside out. So brought up the issue of Singapore. And this was born out of a conversation we had before about whether Singapore feels a little bit, I don't want to use the term selfish or snobby in comparison to the rest of Asians. And I couldn't answer that question because I didn't have enough facts, and I can't speculate on something like this that I do not know much about.
Yes.
So this is where our viewers, the likes of Boone, they understand the culture. But when you look at Singapore, they are majority of Chinese descent.
Yes.
Yeah. Where the difference was, based on some other comments that I read, is that in Singapore, for example, they will look at Indonesian or Malaysian, for that matter, one or the other, as their clients. Why? Because they come over to the country, they study, they work, they contribute, and so forth. But when Singaporeans look at Filipinos, they look at them differently, because that's the working class in Singapore. So it's hard to judge, and I can't judge because I don't judge, because I don't know.
Yeah.
That just brought up when you brought the idea of Chinese married Vietnamese and all that, how that's going to impact this in the long term. So it's a very interesting dynamics, because we need to understand it, that for China, the reason why it is what it is, and I could be wrong on this, Ross, they were able to maintain their culture without interference from outside elements. And you know what I mean by this?
Yes.
Meaning that even in a cultural setting, such as, for example, when people married into Chinese women or vice versa, the Chinese culture was maintained. That's the only way I could come up with or think about. Unlike some other cultures in the region, in the area, Singapore being one. And this is where that notion came up about Singapore feels high and mighty in comparison to other Asian nations. And I could be wrong. I don't know. Psychologically, maybe not. I do know one for fact about Australia.
Yeah.
Is that Australia never wanted to be associated with Asia. That I know this for fact.
You know why? We're better than them.
Yeah, the Anglo mentality. Yeah.
Well, they're finding out that they're not so much better.
Oh, no.
They're really taking it on the chin for this one.
Oh, big time. Just all China needed to do, shut down the trade. But in the case of Singapore, and I am thinking about maybe we need to do a topic on this. What do you guys think? Should we address this in a live stream setting? It's
Please
because
say yes, because I want to do a deep dive into it.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's important. It's important to understand. We don't know much about Asian culture in general.
Right.
We don't in the West. And we are limited as far as the understanding. That's what prompted me to write the book about China. I mean, usually I deal with the Middle East.
Yeah.
My background is in the Middle East, academically speaking. Europe, Middle East, and I do sometimes Eurasia to do. But I thought of, you can be ignoring this side of the story per se, because when the wealth shifted from the west to the east, well, who's taking the lead in the east? Is China.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
without a question.
we can decline, or we can what's the word I'm looking for? I draw a blank on this, Ross.
Well,
We can ignore this. It's a fact.
yeah, right.
It's just the West, we don't want to admit it. We don't want to accept it. And this is, again, like I said last time, what's at the heart of these tensions between US and China is we wanted to slow down the progress of China. And yet our Secretary of Treasury is going to China.
Please,
Please,
give us money.
to me, it's a shame. I'm embarrassed.
Well,
I'm embarrassed.
it used to be something to be proud to be an American.
It's sad.
It's
It
sad,
pains
but
me to say or hear this. Yeah, it really pains me. It's our country after all. But at the same time, like I always say, the responsibility of a citizen is to speak out when it matters.
yeah. Oh, there's so much to say about that. I know that's not the topic of this show.
Yeah. So, I mean, I look at it, just to tie it back to our topic with Europe and France in this case. You look at these failed policies in Europe and how they end up, dragging their societies down the drain. There is no coming back from this. If they think that just because an administration in the US is going to change and things going to go back to normal, they are dreaming.
There's no normal anymore.
There is no normal anymore.
With energy going to Asia instead of Europe,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
no real prospect of that ever coming back.
No. I mean, I'm already watching what NATO is going to be doing in Africa, in the Sahel area.
No.
Yeah.
That's a new one to me. I knew they were looking at Asia.
I'll show you,
NATO and
Ross.
Asia, but
I wish I had the picture here. Maybe I do, maybe I don't, but I'll find it here somewhere.
NATO and Africa.
Yeah, that's what they're gonna be doing. Believe it or not, is the idea of it's because they want to expand into. They wanted to expand into Mauritania. Mauritania, if you look at the map, Mauritania is right here, access to the coast.
Yeah.
And the Sahel region stretches all the way. Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, certain areas of Niger, certain areas of Nigeria, then Sudan, then the Red Sea, all the way up. So, and that's where they want to go. But what do they have in that area? It's rich in minerals, rich in oil, energy. You get gold, you got oil, you get gas.
Oh, you mean they're not doing it for benefit to humanity reasons?
Oh, yeah.
No,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, NATO does that for humanity, right?
Yeah, right. We sure
Yeah.
got that one.
NATO is the danger to global security, in my opinion.
And I agree.
So this is where I see that danger. I don't have the picture here, so this is where I see that danger is, as far as where Europe is headed,
Yeah.
and why there will be no point of return for this, and the incompetency of the leaders. Maybe they should have a psychological assessment before somebody become a head of state. What do you think, Ross? And you go and do the assessment.
I'll tell you, they get much better leadership, and they would know exactly what they're getting.
Yeah.
I would do these assessments for major department store chain, and for the CEO position.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, here are your three candidates. Number one is not qualified for management. Number two, partially adequate, and number three can do the job, and here's how they'll do it. I wrote a book on each one of these players.
Mm-hmm.
And the feedback I got was, you were exactly right on. That's exactly what happened. These things are not a mystery. They're
Yeah.
all measurable in terms of predicting how a person is going to be in a leadership position.
Yeah.
And it's not just me who can do this. There are a lot of really competent evaluators out there who know what I know.
Yeah.
They're not consulted.
Yeah. Well, you look at it just for our administration. You will think they will have qualified people in foreign policy who understand the depth of what's going on. Instead, they hire in amateurs and yes, sir, yes, ma'am people, and favoritism because they've known them for. I do know the background of Secretary of Treasury. Oh, I'm sorry, Secretary of State Anthony
Yeah.
Blinken.
Oh boy.
And he was He knew President Biden from way back, even when Biden was still in the Senate. That's how far back they go. So it became a loyalty. You give a possession to someone because of loyalty? That's ridiculous. Let alone the person is not qualified for the
Well,
possession.
it's not only loyalty, but their ability to kiss up.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
come on.
yeah. And that's end up trickling down, impacting society.
We saw it in the Trump administration as well, but that's not our topic today.
Yeah,
I know.
you're right. It's the idea of. All right, let me see if there are any questions on this. Then I like to take one or two. Okay, perfect. So that is as we're gonna wrap this up, and yeah, guys, if you want us to do the topic on Singapore, I am looking into it, Ross. It's because something came up about Singapore that I didn't know. It has to do with inflation.
Oh,
That is, yeah, I was shocked and surprised.
with the powerful leadership,
Yeah.
business leadership in Singapore, I'm surprised that inflation is that they're tolerating or accepting inflation without doing anything about it.
Well, the thing is not disclosed.
Oh,
So the question I ask, why the government is not disclosing this? If Singapore's government is transparent, which I'm hoping it is, why is this not disclosed?
yeah. Singapore's on my bucket list, by the way, to see.
Yeah. Well, maybe when we go to China, we'll swing by.
All right, all right, all right, all
No.
right. Good plan, good plan.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to. I've never been there. I worked with colleagues who've been assigned to Singapore, but I've never been there. So I'm hoping to one day do that. All right, let's see one question here from Davo B. Question: what will the world look like in 10 to 20 years?
Oh boy,
Oh, I can at least provide an opinion.
I can provide another opinion. So
Yeah, you go first, Ross.
one thing, we're going to see a continuing decline in the wealth of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see more and more people falling into paycheck to paycheck
Mm-hmm.
or poverty.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see the decline of Europe based on the decisions that the European governments have made
Mm-hmm.
concerning Ukraine and so on. And we're going to continue to see the rise, at least for the 10 to 20 years, in China. They are now the space station specialists. They own space. They're going to eventually take over Taiwan,
Mm-hmm.
probably by vote.
Yeah.
Taiwanese people are going to vote to join mainland
Mainland.
because of economic reasons.
Yeah.
We're going to see more and more power position, more and more influence of China in South America,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to see more and more influence in Africa from Russia.
Interesting. So, well, the way I see it is that the multipolar system is going to be managed by economic blocks.
Yes,
There is no more unipolar. It's not coming. So that's
it's done.
No, it's done. That's the one I always see. Second thing, I will see the changes to the financial system in Europe, because you're going to start to see some countries leaving the EU. We don't want the EU anymore, which means by the time they leave the EU, they switch back to their own national currency. I can see also the changes in Latin America with the regional currency that most of other countries there it's going to be. And I can also see Australia becoming a dumping ground for nuclear waste from the United States.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's the reason why we went into the nuclear submarines. The Australians have no idea what's coming their way. Then that's why. And in Asia, you're gonna see it as a whole, the restructuring of the economic ties. That's the way I see. So you'll see less and less role of the United States economically. So militarily will always be there to a degree, but you're gonna notice the disintegration of that. Then the last one you're gonna see is in the Arctic.
Oh,
You're going to see a major time, because by then, within that time frame, the pipeline from all the way in the Arctic into China will be completed, and the gas deliveries will take different routes, because by then you're going to see the Belt and Road Initiative completed as far as Euro-Asia transit.
Yes.
And the transfer of goods going to become either booming between the Middle East, certain countries in Europe, and I won't even be surprised that some European countries will want to even join other blocs economic. That's my read on the geopolitical landscape in the next 10, 15 years. Of course, I could be wrong, but that's how it is. So,
You-
yeah, because, well, it's just because you have to think about it in terms of the dynamics that's taking place.
Oh,
You
yeah.
see the trend. You see the trend that's going on, right? And you said to yourself, this is exactly what took place 25 years ago. Here we are witnessing it now with different players. You go back, or even before 25 years, you go back after World War II. What did we see? The emergence of the United States.
Yes.
You know, who do we see now? China.
I have another prediction for you.
Sure.
Any number of companies in the United States are in economic trouble. There's going to be a fire sale. Fire sale means
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
going to dump. Okay.
yeah.
And who's going to buy it? Who's going to buy up these companies?
China.
I wouldn't be at all surprised to see General Motors,
Yeah.
with China being a major shareholder,
Interesting.
or other companies.
Yeah.
We've seen historically in the United States, we've seen a number of fire sales,
Yeah.
and China bought them.
Yeah.
It's inevitable because they got the money.
Yeah. Well, this is why I'm glad you brought this up, because I just completed the research. We're going to do a video for our viewers. Yes, we're going to do it for you guys. And this is a specific analysis about, that notion that they're saying India's going to take over, become superpower. It's nonsense. I have nothing against India. I respect India as a country, but I got to call a spade a spade. I digged deep enough into this to find out.
Yeah.
And what I found out was surprising and shocking. India ain't going to be a superpower anytime soon. But what I found is what you mentioned about taking over from China.
Yeah.
And I have the numbers to back that up.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, technologically and statistically, economically, I have the numbers that can back on. You see the disparity. I'll give you just quick example. Quick example has to do with China's investments in STEM, science, engineering, math, technology, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
How much do you think China invests?
Oh, I can't imagine.
$17.7 trillion. How much India invest? 3.7 billion.
That tells you this. Billion.
Yeah. Let me hold on. I'm gonna get it because I do have the research right here, and we're gonna do this video recorded for our viewers, because they need to understand, and I don't mind sharing with our viewers ahead. Give a sneak peek for that one. And here's the thing: the GDP. Okay, so despite India extraordinary growth over the past 2 years, when India joined the club of the world's 5 largest economies, India's economy has remained much smaller than that of China. And I give you the numbers. In early 2000s, just listen to this, guys. Listen carefully. In early 2000s, China's manufacturing exports and GDP were about 2 to 3 times larger than India. That's 2000. So now China's economy is about 5 times larger, with a GDP of $17.1 trillion versus India's GDP of $3.2 trillion. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, and we need to stop repeating what does not make sense, that India's economy will surpass or overtake that of China.
It's certainly inflammatory enough to say that, to get people's attention.
Yeah.
But those numbers just tell the story.
Yeah. And same thing applies to technology. China, because India does not have the infrastructure for all this. And why am I saying all this? Because I don't want to say everything, because it's part of the video.
Yeah.
Just to highlight the question from this viewer,
Yeah.
about the next 10, 15 years. And for those who say, well, India's going to take, no, India is kind of, you respect their cultural traditions or whatever, but you take the caste system that's still part of India's, who are we to judge? We're not judging that. Meritocracy, because of the status, whatever, it ain't gonna work in the new global economy when you are putting somebody who has qualifications.
What an interesting point. Of course, I've known about the status,
Yeah.
caste system,
Yeah.
but I didn't think about the economic impact of a bright person's ability to move up easily.
It's the
It's
system.
it's
Yeah,
and we know that India has a number of really remarkably good universities now
they do.
that rival Harvard. They're that good.
They do. Except, Ross, they are not able to match what China produces on a yearly basis.
Not even close.
And I have the numbers to prove that.
What is that? Like 1/6 as much.
Yeah.
Something like that. One
Yeah.
fifth. One.
Yeah.
It's the numbers tell the story.
Exactly. And this is why, but again, what does it tie to? It ties to infrastructure.
Yes.
China's invested in the infrastructure for that to happen by having upscale or up-to-date state-of-the-art universities with the labs, with the technology needed, with the infrastructure for students to get from whatever region they live in to get to the university in no time. India didn't.
You know, one of the things we've laughed about now for a couple of years is, you mean China is using that 1 million science and engineering students to get ahead?
And it's reflective.
And every year they produce another million.
Yeah, it's reflective of their economy.
Right.
And this is why we can't be emotional. You know, that's one thing we don't do in our show here. Can't be emotional. You got to call spade a spade.
Yeah.
So for those who've been saying, I've been thinking about this.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking, do we need to do a video on it or not? Well, maybe we need to, because we need to put things out on the table and let our viewers, as long as they have the facts, they can reach their own conclusion, because it's not our job to reach the conclusion for them.
You know, one of the things we do frequently is we say, what do you think? What do you think?
Exactly.
Come to your own conclusion. Radical responsibility says you own your life, come to your own conclusions, and live your life in your terms. And I think that's part of what the show is about.
Yeah. And exactly, that was exactly what was going on. Even, actually, believe it or not, when I dig deeper into, that's why, guys, I can't advise you enough. When we release those videos, just watch them in their entirety. Because that analysis, if you cut it off in the middle, you'll miss the whole point. So that is the whole reason for it. And why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because back then, it was an individual by the name, I'm sure you guys know who he is, the founding fathers and long-time leader of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew. He's the one who, so he had a great respect for Indians. And you know, when they asked him a question about it, you know what he said? I'll get you the exact quote.
Oh, great.
Yeah. The exact quote, he said, and I put this in quote, do not talk about India and China in the same sentence or in the same breath. He didn't mean to criticize China.
No,
it's like what I'm doing here. I'm not criticizing India. No, by no means. I would love for India to, because they have talented people. When I used to work in Washington, I dealt with people from India. Wonderful people. Very smart, very bright. But I always had that question. You know, here is this massive human talent. They live in their country, seeking opportunities elsewhere, which is okay. Because if those infrastructures or those economic opportunities were in their country, they could have think twice about it.
Yes.
That is the whole idea. So that's let me call, hey, Elizabeth, can you answer this one for me, please?
Absolutely.
This one here.
And
Huh? Okay, let me say thank you here to, oh man, Osiris, great. Osiris, since he joined the channel, he's been always giving us super sticker.
Oh, great.
Thank you so much, Osiris. We truly appreciate it. I mean, Osiris is always putting super stickers. I can't thank you enough. I truly appreciate it. So that's what I intend to do in that video, Russ.
Excellent.
That's why I said maybe we need to do a show about Singapore.
I would really like that.
Yeah. So
And I'll do my part from Singapore.
certainly.
Okay.
All right. Well, guys, we hope you find this very informative. I have an interview in Washington, D.C. I have to get to soon, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. As always, prepare yourself for the changing world order. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.